Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTOadvisor.com with another CTO Dose. It's been a little while. I've started a job at VMware. I've just been busy. A lot of you have hoped that I continue these CTO Dose conversations, and I very much will. And it's not going to be all about VMware because that's not why you came to see me. We're going to talk about the significance of AWS's announcement that they're going to run EC2 instances on Snowball Edge. So this video might be a little longer than the ones in the past. We'll walk through kind of the history of the Snowball Edge and get to why this is a really significant development in AWS's product portfolio and why it makes sense for the industry and where the industry is going. So obviously from a VMware Cloud on AWS perspective, that kind of makes sense now, not just because I'm a VMware employee. Being able to run VMware workloads next to your AWS workloads, reality of where we're at in hybrid IT, there's a need for it. The opposite is the case as well. The ability to run EC2 workloads or EC2 and AWS services in your data center is also a need. We're slowly getting there. So let's walk back the history of the Snowball Edge. Years ago, AWS introduced the Snowball. Pretty straightforward concept. If you had more than a couple of terabytes of data that you needed to get to AWS, the best way to get that there is via physical hard drives. Snowball allowed you to rent a hard drive or a set of hard drives from AWS, copy the data high speed into your data center, from your data center onto the Snowballs, and get the Snowballs over to AWS. You can't beat a truckload of bandwidth. Don't underestimate a truckload of tapes to transfer large sets of data. Very, very straightforward. You know, you can even extend that idea all the way to AWS's Snowmobile, which was announced a couple of years ago, side by side with the Snowball Edge, which if you have hundreds of petabytes of data, then you get basically a semi-truck full of hard drives to transfer that data. Oversimplifying it, but that's the history of how do you transfer data into AWS. So AWS came out with this concept of the Snowball Edge. So what was the edge in Snowball? These are basically servers, 4 2U or more servers, 2 or 1U servers with hard disk in them, which primarily allowed you to say, okay, if I have let's say a continuous need to transfer data from my edge, the classic windmill, the poster child use case, and this is not a one-time data transfer, how do I continuously do that? Well, you take this HCI looking solution. I call it an HCI looking solution because it's a 4-node solution with a expanded file system that allows you to copy data to that cluster of servers. Once you've copied the data, you can take one of the units out, ship that to AWS, import the data while you're continuously copying data. So this gives kind of a land and expand opportunity. Well, what if you need to run compute against that data? Let's say it is, again, the wind farm, and you want to process IoT data, and you want to be able to say, you know what, if a sensor goes off and it's outside of reading, I want to kick off a process. Well, you know what, that sounds a lot like Greengrass, AWS Greengrass, and AWS IoT solution. Greengrass, which is AWS's IoT solution, and Lambda, which is AWS's functions as a service solution. Perfect combination, kick it off. Now, the announcement that happened a week ago or so ago, what if that process was a little bit more complex than saying, okay, we need a Lambda function that's going to kick off a chain of events on some higher end services, whether those services are in your private data center or in AWS cloud, or is some control systems inside of your manufacturing floor or your wind farm. What if you actually needed some fairly robust compute, full Linux or Windows instance to do that control? I have a 4U HCI looking system on-prem already. Why can't I just run a full AMI on that solution? Well, that's where the new announcement comes into play. You can now get super small EC2 instances on those edge devices, which enables you to have this distributed IT or distributed cloud, where AWS still has the AWS control panel in the AWS data centers, but you have EC2 capability in your edge wind farm or data center. So is this a threat to, Microsoft's Azure, VMware's cloud on AWS, VMware's vSphere solution? Overall, not today. You're still missing an awful lot of cloud capability that you need. There's no database services at the edge. You can't have a cloud without having database services. These are really, really small instances. So if you need serious compute, if you're doing, if you want to do some high-end machine learning training, algorithm training at the edge, these systems are not really equipped to do that. This is basic functionality. However, this is where the industry is moving. We are going to need cloud capability inside of our data centers. When I say cloud capabilities, I mean public cloud. Microsoft's Azure stack makes sense if you're an all Microsoft.net shop and you've embraced Azure everything. The same thing for AWS EC2. If you've embraced AWS and you want AWS everywhere, this new edge compute solution makes sense. However, very few of us are all anything. We're not all Azure. We're not all AWS. We're complex environments that need a combination of these solutions that drive business value. I hope you've enjoyed this. You want to learn more about the CTO Advisor? You can follow me on the web, thectoadvisor.com, on Twitter @CTO Advisor, and of course you can find these CTO Dose videos, ctodose.com. Talk to you next, CTO Dose.